All right, good evening. We're going to let folks stream in with us here, but I am going to get us off and running since we do have a 45-minute time limit. I'd like to welcome you to the parents' role in the college search process. Again, this presentation is hosted by WACAC in conjunction with StriveScan. A couple housekeeping notes. As you're entering, you're noticing that your camera is off and you are muted. That is for the bandwidth of all of us here today. So how you will interact with our panelists is through the Q&A function. So if you have a question throughout the presentation, go ahead and type it there and we will try to answer as many questions as we can. If we don't get to a question, know that our panelists will follow up with you after the event today. The last thing I'll say is that you can head over to wacac.com, that is WACAC.com, where you can find recordings of all of our sessions for the these 2 weeks of college exploration sessions. And you can also sign up for more because we do have about a week and a half left of this program. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ken Anselment and get this program off and running. Thank you.
All right, let's get this party started. Thank you. I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. We know Beth, Karin, and I trust all of you know there's a lot going on in the world. We've got a Category 4 hurricane bearing down on the Gulf Coast. We've got a lot of unrest within the state here of Wisconsin here, and a little matter of a pandemic that we're all dealing with. And so with all of that as a backdrop, I know there's a lot on people's minds, not the least of which, of course, is that you've got a college search ahead of you. And so on behalf of all of us, we appreciate you making the time during the dinner hour for some of you to be with us tonight. And to get things kicked off next, I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to say kick about 3 or 4 more times. Karin, is that okay? Does that work for you?
Oh, sure.
Let's do that. To my colleague, Karin Smith from Beloit College.
Good evening. We are so thrilled that you have joined us. Just to make sure, this is the session you're in, parents, your role in the college search process. And what we're hoping to enlighten you with in the next 45 minutes is, well, first of all, I have a feeling, we have a feeling, we think we know why you might have joined us. And so we're gonna deal with that right from the get-go. We're gonna talk about what your roles are and what we who have worked in the college admission arena, but also been parents to our own children who have gone through this process. We're gonna tell you a little bit about what we've learned, hard lessons, some of them. And then we're gonna add a little bit of humor because really, why not? We all need it a little bit. And so if we were in a room together and the 3 of us were presenting to you live, I would go through an exercise that I often go through with students and parents if they're in the room together. It's just the best visual I've ever come up with. And so what I would say is, I would ask the students in the room to please stand, recognize that you're probably seniors or about to be seniors, you're launching into this college search process and it's finally here and you're so excited, and congratulations, right? Then I would ask the students who are standing after we've applauded them to remain standing if they plan to take their parents, or guardian to college with them. And this wonderful thing happens. They all look around and they all quickly sit down, right? And then parents are left to think what just happened. And I think for some of you, that's why you're here tonight. You're here because this is a thing, right? They are leaving, you are staying. Your child is driving the car, you are a passenger. And it's not a role that any of us are necessarily real familiar with, and some of us not real comfortable with. Well, the driving of the car, definitely. And so we're required to be the passenger in this, and that is a new role for all of us. And I would encourage you to recognize a new role for your child. It's unfamiliar, right? The whole college search process for many of us, even the 3 of us here, is ever changing, and it's not something that we're necessarily real familiar with. The other thing that exists in our culture, in this country, is as far as college choice is concerned, there's too many. And there's no clear roadmap. So with that, what we will tell you is our best wisdom to help you enjoy the process as opposed to crumble in the process. As Ken mentioned, and the slide is up now, I work for Beloit College, southern part of our great state of Wisconsin. I also went to Beloit College. I have worked in college admissions for a very long time, but probably the best thing I'm going to tell you tonight is I have 3 lovely children who all still speak to me on a regular basis and have all gone through the college search process and graduated. My last one graduated, yes, in the pandemic this last spring. And so we've survived and we've learned a lot along the way. Beth?
Hi, everyone. I'm Beth Piskel. I am with Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. I am the counselor who works with students from Illinois and Wisconsin. I have been with Creighton long enough to now be reading the applications of the children of people I admitted early in my career. So it's been a pretty incredible full circle. But a few years ago, I became a Creighton parent, and my daughter graduated in May this year and is gainfully employed. So, you know, this is a great thing. And, you know, I went through some trials in the whole college search process with her, which even though I was supposedly the expert, you know, I think I learned from. But you know, the thing that I really want people to remember is college admissions people are here to support you. You know, it's our job to make sure you have access to the information you need to make good decisions. And so we can just be incredible resource people for you. And I would encourage you to take advantage of that.
Thanks, Beth. I'm Ken Anselman. I'm the Vice President for Enrollment and Communication at Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin, a place where dreams come true. I will also point out that both of our kids are currently in college. One is a Golden Eagle and one is a Blue Jay. So technically they have both flown what is now an empty nest. That is the first of maybe 2 or 3 more dad jokes that I will drop on people, but that's okay. I know we've got some parents in the group, so you probably are fluent in the language. Interestingly enough, both of the other parents on this panel helped my kids through the search. And it's a real joy for me to be able to present with them tonight. I really want to point out Beth for eliciting the most excited phone call I got from my daughter during the college search. Katie drove up to Green Bay for an interview with Beth and called me on the way home. And it was the first time I heard real joy in her voice about the college search process, and said, this is the first person that actually saw who I was in the process. It was real. I'm going to start misting up here, Beth. Like, stop it! But it was an experience that I hope all of you get, whether it's with Beth or with Karin, if you're lucky, me. But a counselor who really helps your student kind of find their stride and see how they can see themselves at a college that maybe they hadn't been considering before. And lo and behold, my daughter is a first-year student at Creighton. So Beth, thank you for helping her find her way there. So we're gonna do this as kind of a conversation among the 3 of us, and I'm going to stop sharing right now. Hopefully this will still work. And this is a practice session for you. So, and by you, I mean the people who are watching this, thank you. We're gonna use the Q&A section throughout the course of our time together. And I'll be asking questions of Beth and Karin. We'll be shooting some questions back and forth, but you may hear us say something that launches a question in your own mind. Go ahead and use the Q&A button. I'm sure you've never used Zoom before, but use the Q&A button to shoot it our way and we'll take a look at it. But this first one will be kind of a nice practice round because I'm gonna ask you a question. And if this goes like any other time I've asked this in groups, it's a question, it's kind of a quiz actually, and it turns into an auction pretty quickly. So there are about 2,500 colleges, 4-year colleges and universities in the United States, not-for-profit schools, places like Creighton, Beloit, Lawrence, Harvard, Princeton, et cetera. What percentage of those 2,500 colleges accept more than half of the students that apply? So use the Q&A button just to, first of all, let's see if it's working. But I'd be interested in hearing you kind of throw out your guesses. What percentage of colleges in the US admit more than 50% of the students that apply? And I'll just watch here awkwardly like a teacher waiting for someone to take the first guess. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick. Should I do this for the whole time, Karin and Beth? Just like watch the chat button and just make this the most awkward no, I won't. No, I can't hear you because you're on mute. So knowing that folks don't want to get, well done, Dylan. I like that first venture there. So we've got one guess here. We've got 70% out there. So we'll make it easy. Let's use that as the opening bid. Do I hear higher or lower than 70%? I'm just going to look into the camera and see how many of you raise your hand for higher. Okay, and how many of you think it's lower? Okay, I'm going to do it this way instead. Let's make it a multiple choice. Is it A, 80%? Is it B, 80%? Or is it C, 80%? You probably know where I'm going with this, which is that it's 80%. Some of you may be surprised by that. And I think I can't blame you for that because so much of the news around college tends to focus on the colleges that are super hard to get into. And the story we usually hear is the story of the student who did everything right? Student body president, valedictorian, captain of the basketball team, took every AP class that the school offers and not satisfied with the AP offering, started teaching some of their own AP classes on the side for fun and profit. Let's see what else. They walked all of the dogs in the neighborhood, beloved by animals everywhere. Healer of the sick, inventor of cold fusion, and managed to not get into any of their top choice colleges, which happen to be the most selective colleges in the country. We love stories like that. In fact, a friend of mine, Maria Furtado, who was the executive director of Colleges That Changed Lives, says, Americans we love three things that scare us. We love scary movies, roller coasters, and stories about college admission because they tend to regenerate year after year. Those stories work because they sell ads, but they're not the truth. Truth of the matter is most students are getting into most colleges that they're applying to. In fact, the average acceptance rate in the United States last year, or 2 years ago, I think, was 62 or 63%, according to the National Association for College Admission Counseling. So I say this to all of you as you go into this process, that it's going to be maybe a little bit better than the world has led you to believe up to this point. The only real drama in the college search process ends up being on the student, which is the student that gets into a bunch of schools and tries to figure out which one is the right one for her or for him. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what that process is and how you can help your student thrive in this process, because it can, believe it or not, be fun. It's not 100% fun all of the time, but there are going to be some wonderful moments. So with that, I'm going to toss it to Beth. I have a question for you to get things queued up for us. What are some appropriate roles for parents to play in the college search process? Lawnmower, right? We want them to be helicopters. I'm kidding. What are some of the most appropriate roles that you've seen for successful parent roles?
So I think I just really want to encourage you to ask yourself as you go through this, what can your child learn during this process? And realize that by stepping back and trying to get them to take charge, they're going to then be more prepared to do the things they need to do next year. When you take over, they're not having to do these things and take on the responsibilities. And so this is a super important thing for you to really consider. I mean, wouldn't you love to be going back to college? I would love, but most likely you're not. This is not your college application process. It's your child's. And ideally, they should feel like they are running this college search. This is going to help them feel more invested in the decision. And I truly believe that when kids are invested in the decision, they're going to ultimately feel more determined to be successful on the college campus they choose. So your role is really to provide support and guidance. You can help by listening, encourage them to think about what they have enjoyed in their high school experience, what they have not enjoyed. This is something they know. It can be a starting point for considering things that they want to look for in a college. Now is really a good time for you to start having conversations with your child about their responsibilities. Like, who's going to keep track of things? Who's going to keep track of deadlines, requirements for essays, resumes, recommendations? I think it's absolutely fine and actually wise for parents to keep track of these dates, But ultimately, it's your students' responsibility for meeting the deadlines, and they should be taking an active role in completing the things they need to do on time. I do have a few suggestions for you to consider. If you are currently operating as the homework police, it's really time to stop. Students need to manage their own academic lives before they go to college. If you're trying to take care of things for them now, it's going to make it a lot more difficult for them next year. You need to start letting them manage their own sleep and wake cycles. I mean, make them take responsibility for getting up in the morning. And as hard as it might be, it's better to let them fail now than next year. It's going to be a lot harder for them if they've never done this before. Have you taught them to clean a bathroom or do laundry? This is something I had such guilt as a parent because I didn't do it, and I really regretted it because not feeling comfortable doing laundry made my daughter really stressed when she got to college. I mean, she was calling me like with the littlest things that seem insignificant, but she felt like she didn't know what she was doing. And I realized I could have made that a lot better for her if I'd helped her ahead of time. And her bathroom cleaning methods might not have stressed her, but I can tell you they stressed me. So anyway, things that you can do now, and you have time now to, really kind of start working on this and encouraging them to be more active in these things. So
Beth, I totally could have used, I could have used that advice about a year ago myself.
Yeah.
So,
so and then another thing is having them set up appointments that they're able to do rather than you doing it for them. Have you had them set up an appointment to make their own haircut? If you haven't, you should. And if your child is 18, they can make their own doctor's appointments and go on their own. It's really best if they don't have to do these things for the first time when they're in college and they're on their own. All right, so now I want to move on to things kind of to avoid. So a lot of these boundaries that get crossed, I mean, it seems obvious that it shouldn't be done, but we see things on a pretty regular basis. Okay, so the most obvious, do not complete their college application and do not write their essays. You don't do your child any favors when admissions committees, they can see that this application doesn't seem authentic. We read so many of these every year. We know what a high school's voice sounds like and what they write about. We can tell when it's a parent. So that's a dangerous thing to get into. And it's also unethical, and you're just setting a bad example for your children. I've actually had parents mention to me that they didn't understand a question when they completed the application. I mean, it's incredible to me that people do this. And all right, let's talk about sending emails and pretending to be your child. I've had this happen where parents are using their work email and they sign it from their son or daughter. Now, you can email us, it's absolutely fine, but don't do it and pretend to be your child. And then when they run into stumbling blocks, and there will be stumbling blocks, it's just a natural part of the process, you have to encourage them to take advantage of the resources they have. So most students have great resources through their high school and through the college admissions officers and then financial aid officers as well. And so, you just have to remember that this is not about you, it's about your child. I truly believe that the students whose parents control their college search in the end might suffer from not being as determined to be successful. And we need to do everything we can to encourage determination. Anybody else?
Karin, do you have anything to add? You want to dunk on that? No? You're just gonna stay on mute? Okay, cool. Here's the other thing folks probably don't know. Karin and I used to be on the same staff together, so we go way, way back.
Actually,
oh, look, you do. I see.
Nod to Mr. Anselment, who helped my youngest daughter with her college application. So
that's true. That's true. That's true. I know one of the questions that we sometimes get to is, how can I be a good cheerleader for my student in this process? And inside the question is the answer to the question. which is be a cheerleader for your student. As much as you may really love a particular college, or you really want your kid to go to your alma mater, or a place that's going to look super cool when you put that sticker on the back of your car, even though you may be the principal financial contributor to the process, you've heard the theme and you're going to hear it a lot again. It really is, at the end of the day, about the student. And that school has to fit well with what that student is. We'll talk about fit in a little bit, but I learned that lesson as a kid going through my own college search, except I would advise you not to do what my parents did, which was the reverse psychology game. I went through my entire search believing that the college I really wanted to go to was not the college that my parents were really excited about, because they were pushing this other school. Little did I know then that they really wanted me to go to the college that I wanted to, but they were doing this whole reverse psychology thing. I think that's probably not the healthiest approach. But when I told them what my final college choice was, I thought I'd let them down, and the tears of joy and jumping around in the living room suggested otherwise. So I'd say strike a balance in the middle there, but sometimes you need to remind your student that this is the time in their lives when they get to talk about themselves. It's something that they do great maybe on social media, but when they're sitting down one-on-one with human beings like us, whether it's on a Zoom screen or when, God help us, we are able to do this in person again sometime, it can be awkward. And sometimes it's helpful to remind your kid some of the things that make them wonderful. They may not be willing to accept it from you, but you got to persist, because you've seen a lot in their lives, and you may help them remember some of the things that they've forgotten or have chosen to forget about important moments where they had a choice that they had to make. And it was a difficult choice for them to make, but help them think about some of those things that they may have taken away from that experience. Help them remember some of the wonderful things that they've done that they think, oh, the college people don't want to hear about that. That sounds like bragging. I got news for you. This is the time in your life where your kids get to brag about themselves. And you get to sit back and listen to them talk about it. And it's really a wonderful thing when you see your student engage with a professional admissions person and start to talk, maybe not confidently at first, maybe confidently, but talk about who they are and what they're dreaming about and what they hope to become, knowing that that might change, but to hear them give voice to these things to somebody else makes it feel a lot more real. And I think as much as you can affirm that for your kid, it's going to be a much healthier process for them, and it's going to be a much healthier process for you. Do you have anything else to add on how to be a good cheerleader or agent for your students, Karin or Beth?
The only thing I was going to say is to appreciate the stop sign, right? We have this
What do you mean?
We have this thing that happens at my house, right? I get all excited about something, and it usually often has to do with my kids, and they're like, stop talking. Stop talking. And so I do, right? And so in our attempt to be the cheerleader, sometimes we get out in front of them. And so we need to be careful about that. We can help them, right? We can give them some words if they've forgotten them, as Ken pointed out, things that really are cool about them that they may not think are that cool. But also, I think it's important to appreciate the stop sign.
I just have one little thing, and that is, a lot of kids don't appreciate that what they've accomplished is really pretty phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be so quick to say, I only got this on the ACT, or I only got, they'll talk about a bad grade and they might have gotten 1B in high school. And I think making a point of helping them understand that what they've accomplished is really pretty special. They need to hear that. And so anything that you can do to help them to appreciate that, I think is a confidence booster.
And here's one thing that the three of us as professionals and parents who have been through this process can probably all affirm for you right now, which is, so we've got a lot of students that are high school seniors right now going through their application process who had an entire spring taken away from them, right? The spring musical, spring sports, spring championships, all the things that make spring awesome when you're a junior in high school. And those are gone. You may have had a job lined up this summer that maybe didn't happen. You may have things continuing this fall that you were planning to do that are compromised because of this environment that we're in. We get it. college admissions folks this year, I think, are going to be more empathetic than ever. One of the things that's helpful, I guess, about the awfulness of this time is that we're all experiencing it together in some way or another. And it has made college admissions folks, I think for the time being, although we've always been this way, the three of us, we're gonna have to lean into students a lot more than we ever had to understand what their lives are like, because the traditional things that we've become accustomed to in all of our years of doing this are gonna look a little bit different this year. Beth mentioned test scores. Many of you may not even have had the opportunity to take a test. That's fine. All three of us are test optional. We don't require SATs or ACTs for admission. And by the way, some of the other kids got in on it, like Harvard and Princeton, when they saw the cool kids like Creighton and Beloit and Lawrence doing it. But you've got a year as a college applicant where a lot of the roadmap has been rewritten for you, which can be a little scary, but it's also scary for all of us admissions folks, which means that we're all going to be approaching this with a sense of trying to understand who students are in some new ways. So you get to be trailblazers, and that can be a good thing for all of you. So if you are worried that your resume is going to look sub whatever you imagined it to be, everybody's in that right now. And so we're all gonna be able to help understand what that means. And actually, applications give you space to explain maybe what was going on in your life. So if there's one thing to take away from this thing tonight, I've already said it, this process is probably going to go a lot better than maybe the world has led you to believe. And given how extraordinary the circumstances are, professionals are going to understand how to make sense of it. Beth, I have a question for you. I realize we're at our 13 minutes left mark, so I want to make sure we get through some of the other questions. What are some good questions families can be asking of colleges when they're on tour, or they're talking to people like us? You know, because I know I talk to a lot of parents who are like, okay, we've got this college visit. What should I be asking?
Right. So the first thing I want to acknowledge is that this is an especially difficult time for students to make college visits and be able to take advantage of tours. But you have to understand that that visit options are available. Okay, some may not be conventional. We're doing virtual visits, but a lot of colleges are open for in-person visits, and I think they're taking great care to make these sure that these are done in a safe way. So make sure that you explore the options that are available for you. These visits can provide just a great opportunity, not just to learn facts and figures, but more importantly to me is about the culture on a college campus. So you have to make sure you allow time beyond just the tour and the other meetings maybe that you're able to arrange. I'm always amazed, you know, someone flies from California to Omaha and it's like they want to run as soon as they finish their couple things that they have appointments for, and it's just a mistake. So you want to spend time in areas of campus where students hang out, you know, like the campus coffee shop or student union. College students love to talk to visitors, and they are so willing to share their experiences with you. They remember what it was like to be in your shoes. So this gives you a great opportunity to ask questions like, you know, tell me what students are doing on the weekends. How many are remaining on campus? Or tell me what you do to get help if you're struggling with a class. Ask about students using faculty office hours. Is that a part of the culture on campus? Do people do that? If you meet with an admissions counselor individually during the visit, you can ask for examples about things like undergraduate research, internship, other experiential learning opportunities. How many freshmen return for the sophomore year? Are students actively engaged in service to the community on campus? We can talk about career services and what do they do to support students, or pre-professional advising if your student has the goal to go on to a professional program. Ask about what support is in place to help students as they go through the process of solidifying what they want to study. Going on the visit with your child is great. It's completely acceptable to allow them to go on their own. And actually, I think if you're talking about a student going out of state to school, they're going to have to go through that experience of going back and forth on their own. Having them do that at some time during the process, I think is a pretty good thing. And finally, do not put this off. We're working in uncertain times. I get so tired of that uncertain thing, you know, that phrase.
It's the center square on the bingo card for
But
pandemic.
right now, there are so many opportunities available. A lot of colleges are open to have you visit. You got to go. If you're able to go, you got to do this. And then if opportunities are available beyond the tour, and this is where reaching out to an admissions counselor to ask that question, because I know sometimes on websites it might not be completely clear. Ask about it, because there are a lot of times we can make arrangements for additional meetings, and the more people you meet, the more you get a sense about the kind of people teaching and the culture on the campus. It's just a super helpful thing.
You know, to that point, Beth, I see we have a question that came through, which I think is another question we'll hear a lot from parents, which is, you know, what sort of disability services or support services does a school provide? And to answer the question exactly, do all colleges have assistance for students with disabilities? The answer is yes. We're required to by law if we're going to be enrolling students. But I think it's also helpful when you get to college campuses to actually meet with the people who are working with accommodations for students. You'll find that colleges approach it in a lot of different ways, but you can get a barometer for who your people are going to be on a college campus. And that's the kind of stuff that doesn't show up in rankings and all the other publications that you read. But people either are or aren't going to resonate with you or with your student. And that can go a really long way towards helping assess what the fit for that place is going to be like. Karin, I saw you came off mute. Did you have something you wanted to add here?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have worked with a fair number of students, or I should say families, that tell me that the child was receiving services in high school, but they're thinking maybe they should, you know, not do that. And I don't know what that mindset is with making them think that at the college level. Our recommendation is that if you've received services that have been helpful, you absolutely should continue that at the college level.
Cool. Karin, what kind of advice can you give? What are some golden nuggets of advice you have for parents and families going through this process, especially because this process can manage a family if they're not careful? How can you take control of the process and make it your own?
Right. So I'm going to tell you two quick stories, right? Lessons that I learned. The first one was with my oldest daughter. So she's going through this for the first time. I, as someone who worked in college admissions, was pretty pleased to think that my kid was finally going to do this and I was going to get to go through this as a parent. It became completely unmanageable when she became a recruited athlete. And so instead of all of this happening in her senior year, the actual applying and visiting, everything was backed up by a year. And I was not as prepared as I thought I should be. And you think there's no roadmap about finding a college? Roadmap as far as being a Division I recruited athlete doesn't exist. So I was uncomfortable, nervous, a little out of control. And I am an early morning person, 5 o'clock every morning. 2 cups of coffees in, she's in the kitchen getting ready to go to school. And I, of course, had something about this that I was thinking about. And I was like, so Kelsey, did you, whatever the inane college question was. And she looked at me. Now understand, I'm about 5'9", my daughter is 6'3". She could pound me, every day. So she looked at me and she said, Mom, do you understand that today at school, I have 2 AP classes that have major tests. And you have the audacity to ask me about this before I even go to school. And it was just like this. And she just came at me. And I stopped talking, which is amazing. She left. I called my husband. I said, oh my God, I have become that mom. And I felt terrible, right? And so we implemented at my house and with all 3 of my kids what we called family meetings. 1 time a week. 1 time a week. We met for however long it took. Her dad, her, me, in a room, no cell phones, none. Computers, because sometimes we had lists. And we talked about my list, her list, his list, all the lists, and we got them dealt with. But the rule was that from meeting to meeting, we could not talk to her about this. She relaxed, we relaxed. It was a glorious, glorious thing. Some meetings were 20 minutes, some meetings were 2.5 hours, but we got the work done and managed to not make each other as crazy as possible. So I am a huge proponent of family meetings. I think they work well, and I think they do help to manage the process for everyone. The second lesson I learned was to establish college-free zones. So, again, it's all about me. I'm driving my son 10 hours to visit a college, right? Well, we're visiting 3 colleges, but one and then the next and the next. So of course we visit the college and it's great, and we get in the car and I think, okay, side by side, doors are closed, like we're gonna debrief all this. He goes to sleep. I'm like, really here? So we visit the second college, same thing. I'm like, Patrick, when are we gonna talk about this? He's like, Mom, the car is a college-free zone. I know you think that you're gonna get me in here and we're driving, I can't get out, and you're just gonna make me talk to you. I'm not gonna do it. And he was exactly right. I'm not stupid. This is what I was gonna do, right? And so I think it's also, along with family meetings, it's okay. The dinner table, it's rare. I don't get to sit down with my family for dinner as much as I had wanted to at that point in my life. And so then to come at them about college and make that the college dinner conversation, I would encourage you to make that a college-free zone. So those are my 2 nuggets. Family meetings and college-free zones can make us all like each other a lot more in this process.
That's gold. We did that in our house too. My kids started calling it Sunday afternoon with Ken, which is weird because they don't call me by my first name. But
what about Gabby?
Well, but it's the problem when you've got the dad who's a college admissions pro.
Oh, okay.
But what was interesting is that my kids were less interested in it than all their friends. They wanted to get all the free advice from Ryan's dad and Katie's dad. But the power of what Karin was describing is that it gives students and the parents the ability to both call that time when you feel like somebody's infringing on whatever your college-free zone is or your time is, or dinner. Because you can wreck a dinner pretty quickly, because the college search process can get stressful from time to time, and it can be this cloud that hangs over your head. But if you take control, even just with these 2 simple things, it can go a long way towards keeping your family happy, healthy, and sane as you're going through the process. Beth, do you have any?
Well, I just to support what you guys were saying, I emailed some kids before a presentation I was doing a couple years ago to ask their advice. So these are kids who are college students, but they're college freshmen. All of them talked about not talking about it, and that talking about it too much stressed them, and that they would go to their parents when they had questions. So there is an incredible amount of stress for students, and letting them know that you're available to talk when they want to talk, I think is really very helpful for students and healthy.
Right. Yeah, and the other thing, I didn't say this earlier, but I'll say it now because I thought of it. I think it is appropriate for parents to protect their kids from others who believe that they have an opinion or need to know what's going on with your child's college search, right? The story that I remember is being literally in the produce aisle at the grocery store with, again, 6'3" red hair. A lot of people knew her because she was quite a good athlete in our neighborhood, and people who felt that they could talk to her about this. Well, who's calling you, right? And she would you could just see her trying to be kind, but her level of anxiety amping up. And so she said to me at one point, please, Mom, don't let people do that. I was like, well, I'm going to need your help, but I certainly can say, this is kind of a family matter. Because I think that it's no one else's business, actually, is my firm opinion about that. But people, probably well-meaning, think that they have advice to offer.
Yeah. And sometimes we accept it gracefully, but other times it's like, yeah, thanks, I didn't ask you. It's one of the joys for a short time, and then it quickly becomes tiresome if you've had students who have gone through this before, especially around the holidays, if you have other family members who come in, because it's this touchstone, right? It's the easiest way to start a conversation. And some students are super cool with it. But sometimes you need to let your student take the lead, or maybe you as a parent can even frame it and just say, hey, look, I know you want to talk about college, but he's not really all that down for that right now. So let's see if we can look for other things to talk about at Thanksgiving or whatever the holiday is that we're celebrating together as a family. But ask your student permission. Like if you're cool, if the student is cool with it and it gives them an opportunity to maybe have a different relationship with the people in the family for just that moment, go for it. But it's always good to ask. I know we did that with both of our kids going through because their identities change and they are no longer the cousin or the grandchild or the whatever. They're the college applicant, and everybody has all these things riding on it. And see how they want to go through the holidays with that. I know we've got a couple minutes left. Do you have friends in the audience, questions that you would like to take advantage of? In fact, what I will do is I'll share my screen one more time and put up our contact information so that if you have questions you'd like to ask us individually, we can do that. But if you want to shoot anything off in the Q&A for us to take a shot at, please do. Just use that little button down there or over there, or wherever it is on your device. Meanwhile, Karin or Beth, can you hum The Girl from Ipanema or something while I get going? I want to make sure, oops, I don't know if I did that right. One moment, please. I wait for the, oh, that's cool. Are you all still there? There we go. Yeah.
How are we gonna approach looking at transcripts from last spring and this fall? Can we talk a little bit about that? I've had a number of parents ask me that question, given the current circumstances that we're in and the new way that our students are learning.
And I do want to make sure we do have a question here from a family.
Yep. Go ahead, put that first.
At what point do we do a college-free zone? My student is a sophomore. It's a great question. Thank you.
As soon as your kid says he wants it.
There you go.
Right? Remember, they're driving the car. You're not driving the car.
But once that application process starts, like when they get, say toward the end, the summer before the senior year, I think offering, having that conversation and offering that can exist is a good thing.
I got to go down one screen, just a second. There we go. That's us. So if you do want to ask us about any advice offline, or you want to ask about our magical institutions that we represent, or maybe find out a little bit more about the places where our kids went, we'd be happy to make ourselves available to you there as well. In our final minute together, Beth, Karin, any last bits of parting wisdom?
Enjoy the process, right? You hopefully will only go through this with your child one time. You do get to be in the car with them a little bit more than usual. You do get to see something through their eyes if you allow yourself to do that. I wouldn't trade those long car rides for anything. It was a great bonding experience for me and my kids.
Beth, how about you?
College visits are so fun. Colleges tend to be in cool places, and it's just a great opportunity to take a trip that's focused on your child, and I just think it's like one of those ultimate family experiences. I think it's really fun. And I want to say, we're all open now. Go now.
Yeah, my last bit is, you got this. It's going to turn out the way it's going to turn out. Trust the process. All right, is our benevolent overlord ready to jump in here? And oh, there we go. Okay.
Benevolent overlord is back.
There you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insight this evening. Thank you to our participants as well. Hopefully you're looking at my final few announcements for you. When I close this meeting out, you're going to be taken to everyone's favorite thing, which is a survey. It is a 4-question survey, so it's pretty painless. do help us with some feedback so that we can continue to improve these programs. Also head over to wacac.com, that's wacac.com, where you're gonna find recordings of all of the presentations after the event has ended next week. So you can check out presentations you weren't able to attend or come back and hear this advice again as well. It's also where you're gonna sign up for other presentations. Remember, we do have about a week and a half left of this virtual college exploration program. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and end the meeting. Thank you so much to everyone here and have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. It's Wednesday, right? Yes, Wednesday night.
Bye, guys. Stay well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.